Okay, in this first photo match tutorial, what we're going to be doing is using SketchUp to import a graphic that we're then going to use to draw a building. So first, launch SketchUp. We're going to choose a template, and in this case, we're going to use Architectural Design Feet and Inches. Then click Start using SketchUp. So first of all, we have our window. I'm going to go ahead and close the extra windows except for Match Photo. If this isn't open on yours, don't worry about it. It will be in just a moment. Okay, go to the File menu and choose Import. And go to the folder that you have the picture. And in this case, we're going to be using one that I'm calling Brown Barn. Okay, so choose Brown Barn. We're going to use as new matched photo, not as a texture or image, but matched photo, and click Import. And what you're presented with here is the image that we're going to be drawing, and there's a lot of extra stuff, I guess, on the screen. What these are the bars that you're going to set to create perspective within your drawing. So we need to find some lines that would define the perspective. And for example, on these red lines, we need to find some parallel lines that would be going off towards the horizon in this direction. So the first thing that I see is there's this nice line right here. So I'm going to take the handle of this first red bar and I'm going to click and drag it until it fits on this line. Okay, and we're going to actually adjust these in a bit, but this will be a good first run. Now I don't see a lot of other bars going across, but I can tell that these windows are probably going to be on the same level. So I'm going to take this second bar and I'm going to drag it across these two windows. So I'll have two red bars and these two bars would actually be parallel to each other. The green ones are going to be a little bit easier because we have these nice long edges on the barn. So take your first bar and we're going to stretch it out as long as we can because the longer that bar can be, the more accurate it's going to be. Also, you can zoom in, and in this case I might even choose the bottom of this line because there's this nice dark line underneath it. So I'm going to zoom in over here and I'm going to choose this bar and then zoom back out and make sure that that looks good. And that looks pretty close. Okay, next I'm going to be using this top green bar, and likewise I'm going to do this with the edge of the roof. And if you get this very precise, what you'll find is this blue bar, there's a vertical blue bar, and what you'll find is that this will actually be vertical in your drawing if you've got these lines correct. If it's not perfectly vertical, you might take a look and make sure that your bars are precise, zooming in as much as you can and trying to get as much precision as you can. In this case, I'm going to go to the bottom of this bar and see if that fixes it. And that actually does look pretty good. This one could be adjusted just a little bit too. And I think that's it. You'll see I'm just kind of zooming in and out as opposed to using my hand. Now the last thing that we need to do is we need to set the scale. Well, first of all, we need to set the origin. So this little point right here at the bottom of the blue bar is actually the origin. So when you're drawing in SketchUp, you're used to working from the origin. I'm going to drag this down just a little bit because I know that the corner of the building is actually sitting down here under this grass. The second thing I'm going to do is hover over the blue. By clicking and dragging, you can zoom in and out. And what I'm looking at is that the person, okay, Susan right here, I want her to be proportional to the size of the barn. And what I'm thinking is that she probably is going to be, able to look out some of these windows. The windows might be a little bit low, so I'm going to increase her size just a tad. But that'll give us an approximation of how tall the barn is. And Susan looks like she's in proportion. Okay, when you're done, you'll have this match photo up here, and you're going to click Done. Before we finish this though, take a look at these different styles right here. This first style is if you were modeling something on the inside of a room. This other one is going to be if you were modeling something that's on an outside corner, for example, a table or a box. This last one is going to be outside, so we're modeling the outside of a building. And then you're just basically using these default planes, the green, blue, and the red, blue planes. And then the spacing is 5 feet. Go ahead and click Done. All right, at this point you can start drawing your barn, but again, as in everything in SketchUp, it's going to be very important to draw along the red and green and blue axes. Something interesting about this though, if you were to take your orbit tool and orbit, the barn goes away. There's a button up here at the top that's the name of our file, so in this case Brown Barn, and when you click that, the picture comes back. And you'll see what's going on here shortly, but we need to take a pencil tool and we're going to start drawing. Okay, we know that this front of the barn is going to be on a red axis. So I'm going to click and drag. I know that I need to go up the blue axis, and I'm going to get this as close as I can. Coming across the red axis again, and I am using my Shift key. Okay, and since I am using the Shift key, I can hover over the origin and then click again at the origin. And you'll notice that I have basically a shaded box. If I orbit right now, you'll see that there is a rectangle, but as soon as I orbit, the picture goes away. Right? Now at this point, I can go in and start drawing the end of this barn. Some things that we know are probably true is that the midpoint is what they used to find the middle of this peak right here. Now imagine that you're actually going up underneath these eaves. So if you click, then that's going to give you basically your midpoint. You can also use the pencil. You want to start on a known edge. For example, right here I'm starting on edge. Click. I know I'm going to draw up a blue axis and I'm going to come up here under the eaves. And then I can join it up top. And the same thing here, I can kind of estimate that it's going to be about right here. I'm going to start on a line because that'll make sure I'm on the right plane. I can also use my inferences. I'm locking this inference and looking for this point, and then making the peak. And I've got one more. If I snap over here on this line, I can go down to the end point, and I'm actually going to borrow this inference over here. Like so. And that looks like that's pretty good. If I turn off the picture, or basically if I orbit, you'll see that I have what looks like a barn. So I'll go back to the picture. All right, now I'm going to use my eraser tool to get rid of any extra lines. It's a little hard to see when you're doing this, but just go ahead and clean it up a little bit. And there's our barn. The next step, pretty easily, is to use the push-pull tool to click and drag this back towards the back. And we're looking to take this back to the edge of the back wall, not the roof, because we're going to handle the roof a little bit differently. Okay, so if you orbit, you'll notice this is the shape of our roof. You go back, you can choose Brown Barn. Now if you were just trying to do this really quickly and you weren't paying attention to some of the details, you could deselect and then go to your Match Photo box and choose Project Textures from Photo. Override existing materials, yes. We don't want to trim partially visible faces because, for example, where Susan is, it'll look like a nuclear blast. You'll have an outline of Susan on the side of the barn. So click No. And now when you go in and try to rotate, you'll see that the barn is sort of approximated. And for what you guys are doing, as far as putting solar panels on things, this might work just fine. But if you wanted to be more precise about it, you can actually go in and try and model some of the edges of this barn. For example, if I wanted to select this peak right here, or select this these two lines right here, I can use the offset tool, click, and then bring this out, let's say 6 inches. It's a little hard to see, but I can use my line tool to connect that endpoint. It's still drawing, so I'm going to hit the space bar. Now I can go over here to this one, click, click, and then that fills in the roof. At this point, I can use my push-pull to pull this forward a little bit, then rotate with my orbit tool, use push-pull, and pull this towards the back. As I rotate around and then bring back the picture, you'll be able to see if it's close. And it's a little bit off here, but I can use my push-pull to push this in a bit. And you can see it might actually want to be a little bit higher. The other thing, if I orbit, you'll be able to see that I can pull these down a bit. And then as I rotate to the other side, use my push-pull tool and just double click. And what that does is that makes it the same distance on either side. All right. Now on the next one, what we're going to do is let's see, we've made that 6 inches. So we're going to click somewhere. I'm going to hover over the edge and then come back out and see if I can find, I cannot find a perpendicular. All right, so we're not going to do it that way. If I come down on this edge, you'll notice I'm picking up the perpendicular. Okay. See if this will work. Okay, by selecting both of those lines, I can bring it up 6 inches. Endpoint to endpoint. And then extend this to the barn. Right? And then if I rotate, again, I can push-pull this and hover on the face of this other edge. And then I can push-pull all the way to the back. And then rotate around. Again, let's do this on the other edge. So how I did that is I rotate around. What I did is I used the pencil tool to come down parallel. I then could choose 2 lines by selecting them and using the offset tool. Didn't do it. Select, select. And that one's not working either. So here's another option. I can select this piece, I can copy and paste it somewhere, and then I can flip along the red, go grab a corner, and paste it in place. Again, I can use push-pull to bring this out even, and it didn't. So I'm going to bring it, push-pull, make that even, flip it around, push-pull, line it up with the back. All right, I can get rid of Susan while I'm here too. Now, if I go back to the brown barn picture, check it out, it looks pretty good. And at this point, I can project textures from photo, overwrite existing, and don't trim partially visible. And you'll see that my drawing's actually looking pretty good. Now I could go in and actually draw these little the little peaks, I guess, or the little not sure what to call them actually, but if I go back to the drawing, I could actually go in and use my pencil tool. See, I'm on the face, going down the green axis, up the blue axis, green again. Remember, hold your shift key, and basically drawing a box there. And I can push-pull this to the other side, but I want to make sure that it's correct on the other side. And it looks close. But I can use my push-pull over here to get that right. Okay, I can copy. And I want to move this down the green axis until it's in the right place. And I could also put the texture on this as well. So again, project texture, so you have to be back in the image. Project textures, overwrite, no. And now as you rotate, you'll see. And you can see this one up here is not quite right. So you could triple click it. I'm going to grab this edge because I want to move it over like that. Go back to the image. Project textures, overwrite, and no. Now you can see if that's closer. And we could go up and put the little roofs on as well. All right, then one last thing we're going to do is we're going to go out to our component library and see if we actually have we don't have a solar panel. So let's go to the 3D warehouse, say solar panel. See if it'll pick up my solar panel. No, it sure doesn't have it. So let's see if I have my models. I do. And I can choose the LG solar panel. And now I can just place it on the roof. But before I do anything more, I want to select all of this and group all of it. Okay, but not the panel. So now they're separate entities. But I want to rotate this around, so I'm going to use the Move tool. I'm going to look for those little plus signs and move it 90 degrees. I'm going to move this along the green axis, maybe up a little bit on the roof. And then I'm going to use the Option key on the Mac with the Move tool. I'm going to duplicate that. Oh, 14 times wasn't good, so I'll multiply that times 9, x9, x8. x8 looks like I could fit 8 panels across. All right? Now I could highlight these with the type of crossing box that selects only the panels. I can zoom in and use the Move tool, and I want to grab a corner. Press the Option or Control key to copy. Make sure it's on, we'll say parallel, and then I can zoom out. And if I wanted to see if one more row would fit, I could say ×2. And it looks like it did. So now I can highlight all of the panels. I can move them up. And if I rotate around, I can move them side to side. And that would actually be our barn with the solar panels. If we go back to the original drawing, you don't see the solar panels. But as soon as you orbit, just orbit slightly and you'll get a feel for it. And that's it for modeling a barn with PhotoMatch and adding solar panels.